So we open Act 2, and let's remind ourselves that in this exam, one of the things that we are expected to comment on is genre. It's deliberate that the exam board have given us a play and poetry. They want us to consider the different ways in which messages are conveyed between those two genres. An easy way of doing that is to talk about productions and stage directions. What are we seeing? So you should talk about genre in your introduction to your essay. What else, though, is a really easy way of getting a context mark? What kind of plays did Ibsen write? What style of plays? Alice? Yes, I'm looking for a different word, though. It's in your introduction, the types of plays that he wrote. Right, let's make a note of that then. I'm going to be asking you that next week. He was writing a particular type of play, different to the kinds of plays that European, Norwegian audiences had seen. The first thing you can see I've highlighted is the description of the Christmas tree. It's now stripped and dishevelled. Now, that's because it's been Christmas Day. Christmas Day is over. I'm sure that, like me, your living rooms are a little bit of a mess by the end of Christmas Day. But I wouldn't describe my tree as stripped and dishevelled. Again, there's no AO2 mark in this paper, is there? But what could we usefully say about that description? Maria?
Doesn't mean that it's a personification, but it actually talks about Nora.
Right.
Like moods and everything.
Right. So it's the characterisation of Nora. And why is Nora feeling stripped and dishevelled? Anna? Why at the opening of Act 2 is Nora feeling stripped and dishevelled?
Because she's struggling with concepts.
Yeah, let's just quickly remind ourselves. Look at the end of Act 1. The children are asking if they can come in to Mummy. No, don't let them in. Corrupt my little children. Poison my home. It isn't true. It couldn't be true. So she's being made to feel now that the forgery, the fraud that she committed is now being described as a poison. Okay. So she's anxious. She's worried about the letter being delivered. And the nurse arrives with the fancy dress clothes, getting ready for the tarantella. She mentions the children, but is still, it's Christmas Day, and she's not going to be with them. From now on, I shan't be able to spend so much time with them. So we're thinking here, often we get questions about, with the word consequences in it, for characters who need to think about the consequences of their actions. Okay, let's look at the exchange then between the nurse and Nora here. Well, children get used to anything in time. Do you think so? Do you think they'd forget their mother if she went away from them forever? Mercy's sake, madam, forever? Tell me, Anne-Marie, I've so often wondered, how could you bear to give your child away to strangers? So we learn here that Anne-Marie has had a child and has given it up for adoption. But I had to when I came to nurse my little Miss Nora. When she says nurse, what does she mean there? Breastfeed, actually feed that baby. Do you mean you wanted to? When I had the chance of such a good job, a poor girl what's got into trouble can't afford to pick and choose. That good-for-nothing didn't lift a finger. So you can see I've written already along the side here, women's limited choices. How could we refer to this bit in the exam and make a good contextual point? Something that would be a bit more than just a vague, women didn't have many choices in those days. And I see that a lot in the exam answers. In those days, in the past, in olden times. And it's really, really vague. Especially when we consider how many choices women really have now. We've talked about this with our dystopian novels, haven't we? Talked about what was on the news yesterday about women's freedoms. Something quite... it involved FIFA. Eden?
I don't know what country it is. A woman was allowed into the first football game in some country.
Yeah, women were allowed to attend football matches for the first time. And the reason, I'm going to show myself up now, I want to say Iran or Afghanistan.
It was Iran.
It was Iran, thank you. I didn't trust myself there. I was listening to it on the radio, on Radio 4 as I raced to the gym. What reason do you think people had given for women not being allowed to go to watch football? What's the harm in women seeing football games? There's men there. There's also men running around with their legs out. And so some women were allowed, there were a limited number of tickets given out, but the women were segregated from the men in the stands. Maria's shaking her head. It's hard to understand that, isn't it, in 2019? It's hard to get your head around it. But that's where we're at in the world today. So now let's think about Anne-Marie. Oh, I don't like keeping that still, do I? What would we like to say here contextually? Who can give me something with a bit more meat on its bones? Go on, Grace.
Just about how in Darwinism, people used it as an excuse to say that men were more evolved than women, so therefore were better. So that could be used as an excuse to limit women's choices.
So when you say that was used as an excuse, what, the fact that women got pregnant out of wedlock, like they were...
I think it was just...
They were morally...
They just said that men were more evolved, that they had evolved better than women, I guess, and because women, I think, probably used birth as an excuse for that as well. Because
women did silly things like have babies, you know, some of whom were men. You know, that conundrum. That's a nice idea. I like that. I'm going to put a little note there. I might need to look that up a little bit further, just for my own understanding. Oh, I maybe should have cleaned this desk first, shouldn't I? Look at that, it's disgusting. Oh, bye. Anything else? It's this bit, isn't it? Can't afford to pick and choose. What do we know didn't exist for single mothers in the Victorian era? Benefits. So there was no welfare state. Who's she reminding you of in this play? She's had a baby. The man hasn't done anything. She's given the baby up because she's had to go to... What? What's she had to do? What's Anne-Marie had to do? She's had to work. Who was that like? Christine, yeah. It's like Christine. And who else is it like, actually? Who else has to work to get herself out of trouble? Nora. Nora has to work. So the irony of this society being set up for men and for their careers and for their benefit doesn't mean that women don't work. Each of the three women in this play work to get themselves out of one predicament or another. So we might want to consider that, mightn't we? That would be an easy way, wouldn't it? Say you were making a point about work and you wanted to show the examiner that you had a full understanding of the play. You could easily drop in that that's something that affects all three characters, even Anne-Marie. But your daughter must have completely forgotten you. Oh no, indeed she hasn't. She's written to me twice. Once when she got confirmed, and then again when she got married. Incredibly sad, isn't it? Dear old Anne-Marie, you were a good mother to me. Poor little Miss Nora, you never had any mother but me. Why do I think that is important? What is said about families and... I don't know how to ask the question without giving away what I want as an answer. Here we learn that Anne-Marie has been mother to Nora. Why is that of interest to me? Marie?
Because it's not just the role of the nurse, it's not just a job. Because, when she came in and took the baby away from Nora,
yes.
it's the same, in the same way she became a mother to Nora, and her real biological mother wasn't there. But it just shows that the role of the nurse or the maid goes beyond what it's supposed to.
Right, so we might be starting to think of some kind of nature versus nurture debate. That might take us somewhere interesting. Thank you for that, Maria. Can anyone think of anything else, though? Go on.
How they have enough money to afford a nurse to look after their kids so they don't have to.
Ah, that's interesting. So a symbol of bourgeois respectability is that you can afford to have someone else look after your children. Nice. Lovely bit of context. You're not quite getting, though, where I want you to be. I'm thinking about, let's just go back. Come on, let's just go back here. And let's look at this one. So Helma is talking about Krogstad. Just think how a man with that load on his conscience must always be lying and cheating and dissembling. How he must wear a mask even in the presence of those who are dearest to him, even his own wife and children. Yes, the children, that's the worst danger, Nora. Why? Because an atmosphere of lies contaminates and poisons every corner of the home. Every breath that the children draw in such a house contains the germs of evil. Do you really believe that? Oh, my dear. I've come across it so often in my work at the bar. He doesn't mean the pub. He means the legal profession. Before any of you say, interesting, didn't know he worked in a pub. Nearly all young criminals are the children of mothers who are constitutional liars. Why do you say mothers? It's usually the mother. Too right. Though, of course, the father can have the same influence. And here we learn that the main mother to Nora is a woman who, by Victorian standards, is morally corrupt. Can you see where I'm trying to lead you here? Yeah? Molly's nodding. There's something here, isn't there, about the view that what goes on in the home and with the parents. I'm not saying that, obviously Anne-Marie has never lied about her background. Nora's lying. Nora's wearing that mask all the time, isn't she? But it's interesting to me because often we look at the descriptions of her father as to why, Helma says that a lot, you're just like your father. God, I hope I'm not like mine. Mine's a liar. Well, just remembered it's being recorded. Sorry. It's just the truth. And if my little ones had no one else, I know you would No, silly, silly, silly. Go back to the man, Marie. Now I must. Tomorrow you'll see how pretty I shall look. Okay. Can we take a pause there? I've been talking for 15 minutes. Why don't we stick with this idea of parenting? Why don't you take some time now? We've got 20 minutes left of the lesson to find some of the quotations to do with parenting. And I will write, I'll just put it in the back of the book to remind me. And then I'll write it on the screen. How important is an understanding of Victorian attitudes to parenting when reading A Doll's House? I don't mean there that you have to go off and do a load of research about Victorian attitudes, but that idea of the influence of corruption being passed down. Okay?